Hey everybody, Katie here, and welcome to my home kitchen. One thing I really like to do is try out new recipes, but put my own little twist on them. Today is no exception. We're going to take a classic summer dessert, and we're going to try something just a little bit different. Peach Cobbler. I know everyone has their own recipe, but today I'm going to show you how I like to make it. And then we'll give it a taste and see how it compares. First thing we want to do is we got to get the oven heated up. Always a classic step in any baking you want to do. So for this recipe, we want to set the oven to 350. And while that's getting warmed up, here's one of the twists we're going to use. Is instead of spending all my time rolling out dough and putting in the extra work, I'm going to make it a little easier. It's a nice warm summer day, so I'm going to use some store-bought frozen puff pastry as the base layer of my pie dough. Alright, while that's thawing, we're going to get to the main attraction. The reason why I decided to do peach cobbler today is because we actually picked up some really great white peaches from our local store, and we're not eating them fast enough. So the best thing to do when you're not eating them fast enough is to turn them into a tasty dessert that you'll surely eat right away. So why don't we get it started? First thing we're going to do is we're going to peel and core these peaches. We're going to put them in a pot with some sugar and some water just to make a nice little syrup that we can then pour into our cobbler later. So what I'm doing here, I'll get it to where you can see, is as you can see, my peaches are fairly ripe. They're almost a little too ripe. So what I'm doing is I'm just slicing very close, and I'm grabbing the skin and I'm pulling it off. Now you can eat peach cobbler with the skin on. I know a lot of places that do that, but for me, I like it better without, because I don't like it when the skin gets stuck in my teeth. So it might not be the right way, but it's how I like it, so that's how we eat it. One thing I will add that might be helpful for you is a lot of times people will say that you want to wait until your peaches are ripe to do this. And while that does yield probably the best kind of cobbler, I think that if you go to the store and you have peaches and they're available and they look tasty and you want to just skip to the pie, if you will, one thing you can do, one thing that is great, is you can take those not quite ripe peaches, or any fruit for that matter, and you can just boil them a little longer and wait until they're nice and tender, and they will yield the same quality effect. You just want to make sure that when you put the peaches or whichever fruit you choose into your pie, that they are nice and tender, because they'll be in the oven for a while, but you still want to make sure that when you're serving your cobbler, whichever flavor you choose, it isn't tough. The fruit isn't tough. So you want to make sure that you get them nice and done. So underripe peaches, underripe apples, you just want to boil them on the stove a little bit longer so that they get that desired effect that you're looking for. One thing I will add is that you'll want to do about 6 peaches, or any kind of fruit that you want or that you're going for. I would say, as far as size reference, they need to at least be about a baseball size, if not larger, just because you want to have enough dough, you want enough peach to fill up your pie tin. So that's the goal. Okay, now what we're gonna do, now that we have our peaches in here, I would say 5 to 6 at minimum, if not more, just to make your cobbler really stand out. So now what we're going to do is, in our pot, we're going to add about a cup of water, and we're also going to add about 2 tablespoons of sugar. So let's get started with that. one thing you'll want to know is that when you add the water, you don't want the water to be all the way full. You just want the water to be right around the top. You don't want it to be all the way full because you don't want to lose all of that beautiful peach flavor. We're going to turn it to medium-high heat. The sugar and the butter is what's going to combine to make the syrup. The sugar, the butter, and the water. So you want to just, again, we're just eyeballing this. I would say maybe 2 slabs or 2 tablespoons of butter straight in to the hot. Make sure that you've made, just to give it that little extra that you want. Okay, we've added the butter. Now we're adding the sugar, 2 tablespoons. Go straight into the pot, medium-high heat, like we've talked about. Give that a stir, give everything a chance to incorporate, and we're on to the next step. I know that crumbles aren't very common with a peach cobbler, but it's something that we really like in our home, and so it's something that I've really wanted to incorporate with this cobbler. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna throw together an oat crumble that will go great with our peach cobbler. First thing we're gonna need, all-purpose flour and some rolled oats. I'm not fussy about which kind of oats you use. The one thing though that I need you to be particular about is it can't be instant oatmeal. It has to be the slow cooking kind, otherwise it doesn't work for this recipe. So 3/4 cup. Again, this doesn't have to be a perfect measurement. It just has to be a rough eyeball because it will all come together and it will all taste delicious. So 3/4 cup rolled oats into your mixing bowl, along with 3/4 cup all-purpose flour. There are some recipes that it really can benefit you from being very precise on your measurements. Luckily, cobbler, not one of those recipes. All right, then we're gonna take the remainder of your stick of butter that you didn't use in your syrup. It's still gonna be kind of cold, so what you wanna do is take that knife again and just cube it. I don't know that you can see that. You just wanna cube it into your mixing bowl with your flour and your rolled oats. That way when you get to the smashing part, it goes a little bit easier. All right, awesome. That should be about a half cup, a little more than a half a cup of cold butter. All right. All right, guys, next key ingredient, next important ingredient for our crumble is brown sugar. I'm using a light brown sugar because that's the flavor that I like. If you want a more rich, darker flavor, you can always use dark brown sugar, but I'm going to use 1 cup straight into my mixing bowl. One thing we're going to want to do is make sure that this is packed. And for a long time, when I wasn't cooking with my mom and my sister, I didn't really understand what packed meant. And it's different for different ingredients, I get that. But for those of you who were like me, packed just means that you're going to go and you're going to actually smush, yes, technical term, smush the brown sugar into your measuring cup so that there are no air gaps. And then when you drop it out, you'll see that it falls in one clump. There we go. That is packed brown sugar. Delicious, packs a punch, everybody's favorite. All right, a few more things, then we're ready to get into this crumble. First thing we're gonna do is add some vanilla. I like to use vanilla paste, but vanilla puree, vanilla extract, whichever you choose. I'm using 1 teaspoon. We got our 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Then we're gonna use half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. then we're just going to sprinkle about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I like to put it in my hand of ground nutmeg. So just a little bit. Nice thing about nutmeg is it really goes a long way and it complements these flavors really nicely. So just a little bit. My mom used to say a little bit of nutmeg goes a long way. All right, now we have everything we need for our crumble. Now we get to the fun part. Next, now that we have all of our ingredients in the bowl, we're gonna take our handy tool here and we're going to start smashing it together. You just want to break up that butter, get it in with the flour and the brown sugar, and really make some nice pieces. It doesn't have to be completely smooth. In fact, that's kind of the nice part about a crumble, is that it's not completely smooth. You have some big chunks and some little chunks, but you don't want all that butter to melt and go away either. All right, while you're doing this with your handy tool, you want to go through with your other hand and you just kind of want to flip it around. So while we're doing this, we're just really pushing, twisting, and as you can see, I got some bigger clumps, I got some smaller clumps, breaking it through, and then I just toss it with my hand to make sure that there aren't any really big pieces. That's one thing you would like to get away from. And seeing that we don't have any, our crumble is ready to go. On to the next step. Alright guys, here we are with our store-bought pastry. Looks pretty good. Clean counter here. What we're going to do is we're just going to roll this out a little bit bigger and we're going to round it a little bit so that it fits better in our pie dough. Just rolling out this dough, getting some of these creases out, making sure that this pie dough or this puff pastry fits into our pie tin the way we're hoping. Again, I know this isn't very traditional, but I really like the way puff pastry tastes, and I think that this will be really tasty in this dessert. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be great, it just has to be stretched out a little bit so that when you put it into your pie tin, it fits the whole way across. And the nice part is we can use those to reinforce some of those areas where our pie crust didn't make it all the way. Saving us dough and making sure that everything comes out the way we're hoping. The other thing we're gonna do with these little pieces is we're just gonna, now that we have this corner all buttoned up how we wanted, we're just gonna go around and we're gonna reinforce some of the spots where the dough seems to be a weak spot, like that spot right there. You can't see it very well, but I accidentally poked a hole in it. So we don't want any leaking pie. We don't want any soggy bottoms. So we're just going to take a little bit of our dough and we'll patch it up. And like that, it's not very pretty, but it doesn't have to be. There's our pie crust. Okay, here we are. The peaches have been boiling for a few minutes now. They're really nice and tender. We have a nice syrup going. So what we're gonna do is we're going to start the assembly. Yay! Favorite part. All right, guys, here's how we do our assembly. We have our boiling peaches, as you can see, and we have our pie dough. I'm using a wooden spoon. Any spoon will be fine as long as it has these cuts in it. That way you can drain off some of the juices, because you want to put the peaches in first just to make sure everybody has room. So we'll start by just dishing them out, spreading them pretty equally, pretty evenly around the pie tin. Alright, now that you see we have all of our peaches in, they're all spread out nice and even. They look amazing. It's going to taste amazing. I'm so excited. As you can see, we have all the peaches in, and we still have a bunch of juice, and there's quite a good amount of room. So I'm just going to ladle a little bit of this juice in. I don't know if I'm going to use it all. Probably not. But I just want to make sure I get a good coverage as these peaches will continue to cook. And as you can see, my pie crust kind of fell a little bit. So you don't want to pull it too much. You don't want to do anything like that. You just have to be strong and leave it alone. Alright guys, I'm back with you now. We're going to take this beautiful crumble that we made, and this is the best part, because literally all you're doing is just sprinkling it around the top of your pie. Just use your hands. You don't want to dump it all in at once and try to smooth it, just because you have all of that beautiful liquid. So we're just going to take it handful by handful and drop it on there. Again, I know this looks like a lot of topping. For me, it's not, but this one you can just kind of go off of how you feel. If you think it's too much topping, you can always take off a little bit. If you don't think it's enough topping, which I sometimes am in that ballpark, you can always just double this recipe and add more. So, but this is, again, one of the easiest recipes, so you can just kind of go off of how you feel or how it's looking. So I'm going to end up using all of it. It's going to turn into a really beautiful crumble. Now this will melt down because it's a lot of sugar, it's a lot of butter, but it will hold some of that cakey texture from the flour. So you just roll it around. One thing I am doing is I'm making sure that all those liquid bits are covered up. Kind of clean off the sides just a little bit so that they don't burn. And one more step before we put this in the oven. Alright guys, here we are at the last step before we put it in the oven. And this is one you don't have to do if you don't want to, but I feel like this really helps clean up messes. I get a baking sheet. I put that beautiful, lovely pie that we just made. Small kitchen problems, right? Alright, I take that beautiful pie that we just made, put it on that baking sheet, and then if we do have any boilovers or anything like that, which I'm not expecting, it'll be easy to clean up because it'll fall on the sheet pan. 350, we'll check it at about 35 minutes. It will probably take us 45 minutes, maybe longer, depending on if it's done or not. But when we get there, I'll show you how to tell if it's done or not. All right, in the oven, 350, set the timer, 35 minutes, and we'll be back to check on it. All right, guys, we're back. The timer's just about to go off, so we're gonna check the pie now, and we're gonna see if we're ready to go. Ooh, as you can see, let's pull it out here a little bit. As you can see, we have a nice golden brown on the top. We got some bubbles. Oh, Turn the timer off. We've got some bubbles. We've got some nice brown color. Oh, delicious. All right, let's pull it out. Look at that. Look at that, beautiful. All right, guys, now we're to the most important step for any cobbler, for any baking like this. You gotta let it cool just a little bit. So we're gonna let this cool. We're gonna come back here in a few minutes and then we'll finally take a bite. Awesome. Hey everybody, welcome back. Just letting you know that the pie is now cool enough for us to get to take our bite. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna serve it. All right, as all of you know, we have our peach cobbler here. I've had a taste. I think it's delicious, but in any relationship, the ultimate judge is the one you're baking the cobbler for. So I have here Larry, and he is going to taste our peach cobbler with a puff pastry bottom and a crumble top.
Brown sugar cinnamon, very good with those peaches. They are just perfect too for it.
Right? I don't know that I will use the puff pastry again. I don't think it was sturdy enough.
Mm-hmm.
But you like it?
Mm-hmm.